All right, once everybody's seated, we have our next speaker, Kent Halliburton from Sazmining, who spent 12 hours at the airport to get here. So we're very grateful that you still made it, and thank you for your sacrifice. So happy to have you here, and have at it.
Thank you, Mai.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
All right, let's see if this setup works here. Gosh, it is really good to be here. It was a journey, and let's just say, because I live in the Peruvian Amazon, the journey is, I think, about the same as it was about 100 years ago to cross the Amazon. So, fun adventure for sure, and I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to share with you guys a unique perspective on Bitcoin mining. And it's one that I've pieced together from a unique vantage point and perspective. So I'm going to talk to you about wild sats and how we are in a new era of Bitcoin acquisition. And before I get into it, I just want to thank the organizers and Maya for putting this on and this opportunity. It's really special to be in another part of the Amazon, a place that I care deeply about, and see really cool projects that are working to save and maintain it. And I do hope that they get a spread to my area of the Amazon as well. But talking about mining, though, I want to first do a little exercise to see if anybody can guess this industry. And I promise this is relevant, but before I turn it over and see if anybody can guess what I'm talking about, let me define what these characteristics, or define these terms. Emergent, meaning that it is spontaneously occurring. This industry is decentralized, meaning there's no center point of control. It's distributed, meaning it's occurring across a wide geographic area. It's disruptive, meaning that it is disrupting an incumbent, a powerful incumbent. And the primary manufactured good for this industry is coming out of China. Any ideas what industry I'm talking about? Okay, Bitcoin mining. I hear it. I thought that's the answer that I'd get. And you're right. And it's also rooftop solar. It shares the exact same properties. And that's the industry that I came from. I worked in that industry for about a decade and learned a lot of really interesting lessons. And one of them was how the game can change instantly with financing. I offered the first residential power purchase agreement in the US, and this was circa about 2010 when it occurred, and it transformed the industry. And at that time, I was actually competing in the Bay Area of California against Elon Musk's cousins at Solar City. I had a great time of it. A publicly traded company, lots of responsibility, all that, but I threw it all off to the side and said, I need to go see this planet. And I went on a walkabout for 2 years. And during that time, I fell in love with two things. One was a Portuguese woman, and the other was Bitcoin. And as I began my journey in Portugal, where I wound up restarting my life in 2016, I realized that there was something similar that I loved from rooftop solar that was possible in Bitcoin. I tried mining at home in Portugal and had an experience there that showed me that the sense of empowerment that I got to give to clients when I turned on their rooftop solar systems, they got to see their meter spinning backwards, and they knew they were generating their own electricity, was a very cool experience for clients. And I realized I was having that exact same experience when I was generating my own Bitcoin. It's a sense of empowerment and freedom that comes knowing that there's no intermediaries between me and the Bitcoin I was generating. And those were really where this idea of wild sats came from. Financial freedom and sovereignty, no intermediaries, and independent of the exchanges, and really can only be achieved through mining. So mining gives this opportunity at sovereignty that is both financial and energy. It's where time, energy, and money come together. And this pathway offers some really unique advantages. And so this is where I want to go into, is looking at mining strictly from a Bitcoiner perspective, not from a fiat perspective. So wild sats, this is where I want to define it, because in my mind, This is the purest form of money that exists on the planet, the best form of money. And it can only be generated by mining because it's the only way that you can get Bitcoin that is free from surveillance and free from being tagged and bagged on exchanges. Now, because it offers that financial autonomy, there's some unique characteristics about it that I want to go into here in a minute. But exchanges are really kind of a fiat phenomena, right? It's where the oil and water of the fiat economy and the Bitcoin economy come together. And there's always friction there. There's that surveillance, counterparty risk, and just general restrictions that come along, as well as, there's also just the fact that in the future, that could potentially pose as a honeypot for a very desperate nation state, right? Now, again, mining offers you that Bitcoin mining, those Satoshis without any barriers, right? So you don't have to go through that same structure. Now, giving you some reasons why wild sats, I think, have more value than the ones we purchase from exchange, but I think there's a more subtle psychological point that most people miss about mine sats. And I see it with clients already. And I think of this as the Schrodinger's effect. So if you're familiar with Schrodinger's cat idea, it's primarily the idea that you can prove mathematically that by observing something, you change its behavior. So has anybody walked in, and kind of a rhetorical question, but walked into a room, thought you were alone, and then noticed, hey, oh, there's Bill over there in the corner, and your behavior instantly changes, right? That's the idea that when we're not observed, we behave differently than when we are observed. And so when we have these wild sats, we actually behave with them differently. I see this anecdotally with our customers at Sazmining. They feel more at liberty to spend and use those Satoshis because they don't have that psychological friction of the feeling of a surveillance camera over their shoulders with the sats that they use. And, it's kind of the two extremes of this when I think about this playing out in culture. I think of China, which I think most people acknowledge is like the most surveilled nation on the planet right now, and how there's restricted behaviors and limited freedoms that come with all that surveillance, versus I think of like the Native Americans riding out on the plains and, the classic imagery, that complete autonomy and unbounded choice that occurs. And it's my perception that we need more of these wild sats to actually prime at least in the West, to prime the circular economy of the Bitcoin ecosystem. So the other reason, and this one is a bit controversial, but the other reason why I believe that we need to get more people involved with mining is because there's going to come a time in the not so distant future where liquidity dries up on exchanges. Now, this is controversial because if you look at the Bitcoin ecosystem, it's primarily made up of the merchant Bitcoin economy and the mining economy. And these two groups don't really talk to each other. The mining economy is typically driven actually by fiat incentives. You can see this with the publicly traded miners, versus the merchant economy is really driven by more like Bitcoin-aligned incentives. And so there's been, I think, a miss at the moment for looking at this particular problem. But I wanted to put some numbers around it and tell you guys what I think is driving our behavior as a group and why we see store of value as like the primary use case for Bitcoin right now is because it's Gresham's law. So for thousands of years, Gresham's law has held true, which is that we spend the bad money and we hoard the good money. So in our day and age, what's the bad money? It's fiat. What's the good money? It's Bitcoin. So if we look at the sum totality of all the fiat that's in existence right now, it's $92 trillion. If we look at the number of Bitcoin that are available on exchanges right now, it's 2.7 million, which, by the way, is at a 5-year low. If you just do simple numbers on that 2.7 million at today's price of about $75,000, it only takes $200 billion worth of value to be able to absorb all the liquidity off the exchanges. Now, granted, if somebody tries to buy it all, the price is going to run up. Maybe more Bitcoin comes on exchange. There's a whole argument there. My point, though, really is $200 billion is 0.2% of the global monetary base that's sloshing around. That is not very much money to suck it all away. And further, I would argue that for the same reasons that we see many fiat wealthy people on the planet owning beachfront property and homes that they never use, we're going to see people doing the same with Bitcoin. They're going to buy Bitcoin, they're going to sit on it, and they have enough wealth that they're not going to need to do anything with it. And so that gives a good, strong incentive for all of us to get involved with mining sooner than later, because if there's no Bitcoin on exchanges, how else can you get Bitcoin? And the only way that you can do that without any third-party control or censorship is mining. Is there any water? I don't want to abuse all you guys with my coughing into the microphone here. So the next reason why I think we need to get more folks into mining is because there's a strategic advantage. Yeah, thank you. So we see that there are multiple corporations and nation states starting to get into mining. The question is, why aren't they just going out to the exchanges and buying it, right? And for me, the answer is, it's the same reason why people go to exchanges and dollar cost average, is because it is a different way, a better way to dollar cost average. Because what you're doing with mining is you're taking a piece of hardware and you're, for the next 3 years, getting the value back in Bitcoin of that hardware that you've purchased, along with the expense of electricity that you've got to put in. So it's a dollar cost averaging tool, but it's done directly on the network. And what we're seeing is corporate adoption is going up. T-Mobile is now starting to mine with excess electricity. Bhutan, El Salvador, Russia just inked a deal. If you've not heard about the strategic reserve in the US that Trump is planning to push, and he said that he wants all Bitcoin produced in the US, there is an arms race that has started for mining. And the reason why is because people can turn electricity into money, right? There's no reason why individuals can't do this too. So my point on this slide is, hey, look, just because the big guys are doing it doesn't mean we can't do it as well. All right, great. We've got good reasons to mine at this point, but why would you want to get started now? And I would say we're at a key inflection point in Bitcoin mining's journey, because the mining costs are lower than they've ever been, meaning the technology is more mature. We're past the days when the hardware needed to be changed every 3-6 months. The standard expectation is that your hardware is going to last at least 3 years, maybe as long as 6. So that technology is also easier to access. So companies like Sazmining, right? We've built a mining as a service platform that makes it easy with a few clicks to purchase a mining rig, get it deployed, start earning Bitcoin directly to your own wallet. But it's now easier to access Bitcoin mining than it has been in the past. The technology is more stable. It's not changing as much. So that accessibility makes it a better opportunity now than it was in the past. There's the opportunity to start building a long-term position through this strategy by building a fleet of mining rigs. And then, of course, for the same reason that you hold Bitcoin, it's also just a strategic hedge that's outside the system, right? Because especially with the wild sats that you're generating, it's truly outside the system because there's been no surveillance that have been put on the Bitcoin you receive. Now, if I leave you with no other idea in your mind, I want you to leave you with this one, which is you have a choice of how you look at the Bitcoin that you receive through Bitcoin mining. And you have to make that choice from either a fiat perspective or Bitcoin perspective. I think our industry has totally confused people on this particular point. I think our entire industry has done a disservice to the Bitcoin economy by not being very clear about this. So what do I mean? If you are analyzing your investment in Bitcoin from an ROI perspective, that is a fiat-based perspective. The way to look at this as a Bitcoiner is, what is my Bitcoin cost as compared to an exchange? Am I getting my Bitcoin at a lower price? Or is the price I'm acquiring Bitcoin at a fair value for the wild sats that I'm receiving in return. Now, I say this because if you are looking at from Bitcoin acquisition, it doesn't make any sense to think about it in fiat ROI. And that's counterintuitive because Bitcoin mining is probably the only investment on the planet where you put dollars in and you get Bitcoin out. And so every other investment where you put dollars in and you want to see how long it takes to get back your dollars, it totally makes sense to have that thought process. But this is a tool to acquire Bitcoin. And so that thought process needs to be inverted. So think like a Bitcoiner when you're looking at Bitcoin mining. Don't think of like a piece of property that you're trying to get your dollars in and your dollars back out. So the next area that often sort of traps people when they think, okay, is mining really available to me, is energy FUD. And I like this metaphor of thinking through pioneers versus settlers, and I think it's particularly apropos for me because I grew up on the West Coast and had stories of Oregon Trail pioneers and settlers in my heritage. And when I think of the pioneer days, the pioneers are the ones that blaze the trail, right? They wind up with the arrows in their backs and the wild animal scars and pain that comes through being the first down a path. And I think of that in our industry as the Bitcoin pizza days, the Ross Silk Road days, the WikiLeaks days. These are the pioneers that came. We are now at this stage with the mining industry where we're settling. And the settlers are the ones that come and take that path, they open it up, they build the homesteads, and they build the infrastructure that ultimately leads to civilization. And that's where we are today. And you can see this because the network is becoming more and more stable. It's growing. If you look at a chart of the hash rate, the amount of computational power that's coming online, you can just see the slow, steady up and to the right as Bitcoin gets more and more secure and stable. And not only that, but you can see it increasing up and to the right with sustainable clean power. We're already the most clean run industry on the planet and clean run nation state if you were to consider the Bitcoin network to be a nation state actor. So that means we have long-term resilience and growth for future generations that we're building here as miners. Not only that, but the mining technology continues to improve. It's not so much the mining rigs themselves right now that are giving leverage, but innovative technology. So we've got immersion or hydro cooling. What this means is just different ways to cool the mining rigs that have lower moving parts. What that does is it makes your equipment last longer with fewer repairs and generates more hash rate with less energy. Probably the most innovative area for me in Bitcoin mining at the moment is heat recapture or heat capture initiatives. So what this is when the heat from Bitcoin mining is utilized and turned into money. So quite literally, we just launched a data center in Norway that is taking the heat. So an electron goes through the circuitry in a Bitcoin mining machine, and it generates hashes for the Bitcoin network. It also offsets as heat. So you're using the same electron for two uses, and you can monetize both. The hash is turned into Bitcoin, and the heat you can actually sell it in the right setting. So we've got a data center in Norway that we've launched. It'll be live December 1st. And it's under construction at this moment, but it's north of the Arctic Circle. The heat is being harnessed to actually heat an entire building. An oil burner is being removed. An oil boiler is being removed, so it no longer needs to heat the facility there. And part of the heat is going to dry fish, which is a big part of the local economy there. So very cool showcase opportunity, but for the first time to the public, general public can take advantage of this opportunity and participate. So quite proud of that reuse technology. And the cost or the value of that heat, because it is so consistent and necessary for that building, helps to reduce the operational costs of running the mining equipment. So it's very low cost. So this is going to be very competitive technology, I think, into the future. And makes mining more sustainable. So final slide here, just to wrap up. the wild sats era is here. And that means more financial freedom, more sovereignty, less surveillance and control. And it's ultimately where I think we get the medium of exchange use case coming from. It's going to allow folks to build more resilience and provide stability in an increasingly volatile world. And there's a really interesting opportunity right now where people have the ability to use this asymmetric knowledge to actually get there ahead of the masses, because it's my contention as liquidity dries up from exchanges that we're all going to be miners. So you might as well hop in, the water's warm, get started, because it's going to bring us all there eventually as Bitcoiners. I like to, Bob Burnett, if you don't know him, he runs Barefoot Mining, kind of a personal hero of mine, and become a friend, and he's become an advisor to the company as well. And we talk about how there's kind of this trap door at what you think is the bottom of the Bitcoin rabbit hole, and it's called mining. And when you go through it, you realize there's a whole lot more to learn. It's quite a fun journey. So never a dull moment in Bitcoin. And I will pause there, and if anybody's got any questions for me, be happy to answer them.
Good afternoon. Just a question. Someone locally, if may say it like that, how can any local get in contact with, let's say, the company you work for to start mining?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing your question very well. Can you speak up?
Sorry. Yes, better. I asked if how can a local from Suriname get in contact to at least start mining?
Yeah, I mean, I think the simple way is you can go to our website. It probably should be on this slide, but sazmining.com if you want to get started. So we've got a platform where anybody can pick up a mining rig, and we're not the only company that has this type of an idea. We're the only one that has built software for it.
Yeah.
But you can go buy a mining rig on our website. We get it purchased, deployed, ready to go. You just provide your Bitcoin address, and the Bitcoin gets streamed to your wallet.
Okay.
Yep.
Hi. I've never really been a miner. I'm not really a hardware person. I normally use my Bitcoin, I guess. So I'm a bit confused. I've got a few questions about it. You talk about everybody being a miner, but in my mind at the moment, the average person, for example, BitX is quite a popular device at the moment, but in my mind, people do that to support the network, not to actually ever receive any Bitcoin, because the competition's too high to receive any meaningful amounts of Bitcoin.
Yep, that is absolutely true. BitX is a lottery ticket at best, and a great educational tool, but it's not really for generating any value. And I mean, it's same value as a lottery ticket from my vantage point, but what we offer is the same industrial rate equipment as the publicly traded mining companies offer. We just offer those in single units. So, you know, we have clients that have one mining rig. We've got clients that have got 300 mining rigs with us.
So when you say everyone will be a miner, what's the minimum investment to be of any value to an individual?
Well, that's going to change depending on the mining hardware prices, because that does change it throughout the 4-year price cycle. At this moment, minimum value, like on our website to get started, is an S21, not the Pro, but it's about $4,500.
Well, okay. So coming from you mentioned circular economy and things like that a number of times. Coming from my perspective, I would I've got experience with running my own node. The hardware's 10% of that cost, and people, in my mind, can get a lot more value by running a Lightning node and contributing to the network. And there's a certain amount of anonymization with the Satoshis on there as well. I guess I'm just pushing back a little bit. I don't really have a question or a statement there, but yeah, I'm just surprised at your comments that everyone will be a miner when I would almost encourage people to look at going for a node instead to support the Lightning Network and get similar benefits.
Yeah, so listen, my thesis, everyone's going to become a miner, is the same reason why, or is based on the fact that liquidity is going to dry up on exchanges. So if people are going right now, and I don't know what dollar cost averaging value people are doing on a let's say a weekly basis, but $4,500, let's bump it up to $5,200 to make really simple numbers. There's 52 weeks in a year. If you're putting $100 per week into Bitcoin, dollar cost averaging that, there's no difference between that and buying a mining rig, because when you buy that mining rig, you're going to get 3 years worth of value out of it, right? So that's my point, is people are going to need to seek an alternative if there's no liquidity on exchanges, and that's going to drive people to either sell goods and services to acquire Bitcoin, or they're going to have to learn how to mine to acquire Bitcoin. There's really no other options if there's not any Bitcoin on exchanges.
Or peer-to-peer cash, or peer-to-peer, is that okay, or is that me? There we go. Or peer-to-peer cash trades via Lightning could also provide a similar...
Yeah, if there's liquidity, but
Yep.
the standard way that we're doing it now for most is to go to an exchange service of some type, or a service that's built on top of an exchange-based technology.
Yeah, correct. I agree. All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, I think, again, this idea is controversial because not many Bitcoiners have actually thought this all the way through, so I fully expect pushback. No offense at all.
No, it's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, because I don't know much about mining, so for me it was quite an interesting talk. Thanks.
Here, hello. Okay, when you say for 4,500, that doesn't include the monthly fee for the energy.
It does not.
Right?
No. It's around. Gosh, I think this particular machine is about $100 a month to run with the electricity costs that we've procured. So the way our business model works is we don't make any money selling hardware or electricity. That's how the hosted model has traditionally worked. Instead, what we do is we pass through those costs, and then when the rewards are paid out from the mining pool, we instruct the mining pool to split that payout, and we take 15% as a management fee for our service.
Okay. So like I did that. I bought a miner 2 years ago, more out of curiosity. I still don't know if if it was a good deal or not. But I'm wondering if everyone is going to become a miner, if it's going to be at home. Because now, yes, my miner is hosted somewhere in US, and I can check my sats every day. It's good to see that, like I like the idea that I'm sleeping and it's working for me. And but still, even from people here, I get, well, if you have, and I bought at the bear market, so I spent $2,000 on a S19 with 100 terahash, and today it gives me 7,000 satoshis a day, and I pay almost $200 a month. So many people tell me, well, if you just buy $200 a month, you can get more than that. So two things, like how can we make a good business case to have a miner if privacy is not that big of a concern for you, right? And so we can start the mining now, and if there is a model to mine at home really with and not hosting the miner somewhere, because that's also a point of failure, right?
Well, I think I think what's limited a lot of people from mining has been the complexity. I think the complexity creates a lot of friction that makes it inaccessible. And so what I see occurring in the future is a lot of people will be mining from home, and it will make sense in circumstances where they can also capture the heat. And the reason why I say that it needs to have a heat reuse component to it is because the average cost of electricity is about 17 cents in the US. So I'm using the US as my frame of reference, but I don't think it's so different. Like where I am in the Peruvian Amazon, for instance, I'm paying like 28 cents per kilowatt hour or something. I mean, it's quite expensive. But the more expensive your power, the less sense it makes if you're not figuring out some other way at home to monetize the heat that you're generating. So for this reason, that's ultimately the value proposition of companies like ours, is that we go out and find a data center with low cost power. So we're finding, that data center in Norway, the cost of power there is 4.6 cents. We've got a data center in Paraguay, it's 4.7 cents per kilowatt hour. At those prices, the monthly electricity for that same unit, it goes from $200 down to, and I can say this because I actually have that exact same unit running in Wisconsin, but at another data center we've got there, but it goes to like $80 or $90 a month. And suddenly that changes the value proposition for people. So it's about accessing low-cost power is ultimately what it comes down to, and that's the value proposition that we provide for clients, is going out and finding data centers that have low-cost power. And the reason they have low-cost power is a lot of times they've secured power purchase agreements, but they don't have the capital to actually fill that the capacity necessary with hardware. And so somebody like us can come in and say, okay, cool, you make a little markup on your power, service the mining rigs on our behalf, and we can fill that data center, so it becomes a win-win.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. We still have some questions in the. Oh, we still have a question. I think we'll hold that at the last question.
Thank you. A question I have is there are 21 million bitcoins. There's a halving every 4 years. So the reward to the miner is diminishing. Am I correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, so if there's gonna be a lot more miners, can you explain to me that how it's gonna take? Because I read somewhere that it's gonna take a lot of 150 years before all bitcoins are mined.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's more miners coming, then my intuition tells me that it's gonna run out of Bitcoin a lot faster. So how is that formula? What is the formula for determining that it's going to take 150 years before all miners are mined?
Yeah, that's I think the most ingenious part of Bitcoin, if you ask me. It's the difficulty adjustment is ultimately the answer to that. So the way that the monetary supply of Bitcoin is issued is that it regulates blocks on a 10-minute basis. So every 2 weeks, if blocks are coming out faster than 10 minutes, the difficulty goes up. If the average time per block is more than 10 minutes, the difficulty goes down every 2 weeks. And why that's important is because by that difficulty adjustment, we know that blocks are going to stay at, on average, about 10 minutes per block. And every block, at this point, given that we had the last halving, it's 3.125 Bitcoin that is in the block subsidy. Now, moving forward into the future, every 4 years, the block subsidy cuts in half. So because we know with relative certainty the schedule and the pace at which new Bitcoin is issued, we can tell you with certainty that it'll be around 2140 before the very last Bitcoin of the 21 million is issued.
Okay, I'm going to cut in, Mr. Kent. Dames en heren, ladies and gentlemen, please can I have an applause for Mr. Kent Halliburton. Kent, I'm very glad you made it to the conference.